Grantharaj Bhagavatam ki, Jainitai Gaur Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Sri Guru and to Sri Gauranga, all glories to Sri Om Agyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा माह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरौ श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवं श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगनं रघुनाथान्वितं त्वं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादं सहगना ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितं च। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपीशा गोपिका कान्ता राधा कान्त नमोस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वंशकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। That seems to be loose.
No, not loose, Guru. My charge is not there.
Huh?
Charge is not there. It will switch off after some time. That's why I'm recording into this.
Nasta prayeshu badreshu Narayanam namaskritya Naram chaiva narottamam Devim saraswatim vyasam Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, let us first offer respectful obeisances unto Narayana, Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Nara Narayana Rishi, the supremmost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayesabhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. By regularly hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering service unto the pure devotee. Nasta prayesabhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. Idam Bhagavatam Nama Puranam Brahma Samhitam Shloka Charitam Chakara Bhagavan Rishi Shreyasaya Sayalokasya Dhanyam Swasayanam Maha. The Srimad Bhagavatam, known as the Grantaraj, the king of all Vedic literatures, is the literary incarnation of God. It is compiled by the incarnation of God, the Srila Vyasadeva. It is meant for the ultimate good of all people. It is all successful, all blissful, and all perfect. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Surabhyaya Namaha.
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 Mukam karoti vasanam tvam gurum gayate girinna. Yakripa bhante Sri Gurum Dinataram. Yakripa bhante Sri Gurum Dinataram. Hare Krishna. Welcome to our morning Bhagavatam class. So it's not working.
No, it's working. It'll take more charge if I stream it, so I'm recording it.
We are reading from the 18th chapter of the 11th Canto, chapter entitled Description of Varnasana Dharma. Today we are beginning with text 26. Naitad vastutaya pashyed drisyamanam vinashyati asakta chitto viramed ihamutra chikirshitat. Did we read? We read this yesterday, right? Okay, it sounds familiar. So 27 we didn't read, right? Or did we? Kali Yuga, my God.
Yes, we stopped from verse 26 yesterday.
Yeah.
But whether we read the text 27? Okay, so we did 25 and 26 yesterday. Okay, so 27. Yad etad atmani jagan mano vak prano samhatam sarvam mayiti tarkena sva stas tyakva na tat smaret yaditad atmani jagan manobak prana samhatam sarvam mayiti tarkena swastas tyakva natat smaret yaditad atmani jagan manobak prana samhatam sarvam mayiti tarkena swastas tyakva natat smaret yaditad atmani jagan manobak prana samhatam sarvam mayiti tarkena swastas tyakva natat smaret
Yadetatmani jagan Manovak prana samhatam Sarvam mayeti tarkena tatsmare. Yadetatmani jagan. Manovakranasamhatam.
Sarvam mayeti tarkena.
Sarvam mayeti tarkena.
Swastastikva natatsmare.
Swastastyatva natatsmare.
Yat,
Yat,
which,
which,
etat,
etat,
this,
this,
atmani,
atmani,
in the Supreme Lord,
the Supreme Lord,
jagat,
Jagat,
universe, manaha,
Manaha,
of the mind,
of the mind,
vak,
Vak,
speech,
speech,
prana,
Prana,
and life air,
and life air,
samhatam,
Samhadam,
formed,
formed,
sarvam,
Sarvam,
all,
all,
maya,
Maya,
material illusion,
material illusion,
iti,
Iti,
thus,
thus,
tarkena,
Tarkena,
tarka, by logic,
by logic,
swastaha,
Swasta,
fixed in the self,
fixed in the self,
tyakva,
Yaktva,
giving up,
giving up,
na,
No,
never,
never,
tat,
Tat,
that,
that,
smarat,
Smarat,
which one should remember.
one should remember.
Most of these words are quite well known, actually. Translation and purport by the disciples of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. One should logically consider the universe which is situated within the Lord and one's own material body, which is composed of mind, speech, and life air, to be ultimately products of the Lord's illusory energy. Thus, situated in the self, one should give up one's faith in these things and should never again make them the object of one's meditation. Can you repeat after me? One should logically consider the universe,
One should logically consider the universe,
which is situated
which is situated
within the Lord,
within the Lord,
and one's own material body,
and one's own material body,
which is composed of mind,
which is composed of mind,
speech, and life air,
speech and life air,
to be ultimately products
to be ultimately products
of the Lord's illusory energy,
of the Lord's illusory energy.
thus situated in the self.
Thus situated in the self,
One should give up
one should give up
one's faith in these things
one's faith in these things,
and should never again
and should never again
make them the object
make them the object
of one's meditation.
of one's meditation.
Report. Every conditioned soul considers the material world to be the object of his personal sense gratification, and therefore considers the material body to be his actual identity. The word tektva indicates that one must give up one's false identification with the material world and the material body, since both are merely products of the illusory potency of the Lord. One should never again meditate on the material world and body as objects of sense gratification, but rather he should become situated in Krishna consciousness. Looking at things from the eternal point of view, the world is simply illusory. The material energy of the Lord is devoid of consciousness and thus cannot be the basis of actual happiness. The Supreme Lord Himself is the only absolutely conscious entity. He is absolutely self-sufficient, standing alone, as Vishnu, the personality of Godhead. Only Vishnu and not the insignificant workings of material nature can give up the actual perfection of life, or can give us the actual perfection of life. Translation again, one should logically consider the universe, which is situated within the Lord, and one's own material body, which is composed of mind, speech, and life here, to be ultimately products of the Lord's illusory energy. Thus situated in the self, one should give up one's faith in these things and should never again make them the object of one's meditation. So the text is inviting us to use logic in understanding our position. Prabhupada would explain at times how by a little exercise of logic, we can understand that this material world is temporary. By a little use of logic, we can understand that we are also not this body. This body is constantly changing. By the use of logic, we can understand that we are the observer of this body. That's also, of course, nicely explained in the Bhagavad Gita. Kshetra, kshetragya. Kshetra means field. In the context of the body means this particular body. This body is our kshetra. And kshetragya means the knower of the body. Jnanam, one who knows the body. So we are able to observe this body. And if one stops and analyzes, one can understand that we are actually not this body. So both the body and the whole material cosmic manifestation are illusory in the sense that they are temporary. So it means, that's why in the Shastra it mentions that one who becomes a devotee of the Lord is most intelligent. Requires some intelligence, requires a little effort, isn't it, to understand the situation and not simply be completely blinded by the material energy of the Lord. Of course, the material energy of the Lord, Daiviyesha Duratyaya, very difficult to overcome. It's actually referred to as Daiva Prakriti. So everyone in the material world is, we say, enamored, completely overcome by this very powerful energy of the Lord, where we experience and observe so many varieties. And when we are devoid of proper understanding, when we are devoid of proper knowledge, we naturally become totally enwrapped in the material world and the material energy and this material body. So here the injunction is being given that we can only come out of this illusory state by what Prabhupada refers to as cultivation, isn't it? Cultivation of Krishna consciousness, cultivation of spiritual life, which requires initially some effort on our part to hear, to read, and to contemplate. That is the whole meaning of meditation. Meditation, I say, is a contemplation. Most people in the material world, we know, the only contemplation they know is contemplation on the material world and how to exploit material energy. And of course, most people in the material world cannot even stop to to analyze or to think. People very often will only become a little meditative when some major tragedy happens in their own life. Either they get into like a major accident, then they start having some realizations, or some member of the family passes away, some tragedy. So this is the difficulty of the what is called Bhaddha-jeev, conditioned living entity. So powerful is the material energy. So powerful is the forgetfulness of who we are, that the term nitya baddha, eternally conditioned, we are labeled. The living entities in the material world are labeled as nitya baddha, eternally conditioned. But actually, we're not eternally conditioned. Theoretically, we can remain as long as we don't come in contact with such knowledge. So, and it requires a tremendous what is it? One needs to become, what's the word? Resolute. What's another word for resolute?
Determined.
Determined. Yeah. Another word for determined or resolute? Prabhupada would say become very serious. And it's connected. One has to be extremely determined to get out of this illusory condition, because it is so powerful. It is dragging us down, and therefore one has to be taking various precautions to actually become fixed up. Here it mentions how we should stop our meditation, our attraction, our attachment. And the only way to do that is to do the opposite, which is nicely explained by Narada Muni. Smritam sa tadvidam rajam. What's that verse? It's in the 7th canto. Dharma mulam hi bhagavan sarva vedam ayo hari. It's a 7th canto, 11th chapter, I think, verse 7, I believe. 7, 11, 7. Try that. Dharma mulam hi bhagavan. Dharma. It's all centered on dharma.
Dharma Mula hi Bhagavan Sarva Veda Mayo Harihi.
Then
Smritam
Smritam
cha
Cha.
tad vidam rajan yena chatma prasidati.
Yeah. So what is the translation?
The Supreme Being, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the essence of all Vedic
The
knowledge.
Supreme Personality of Godhead is the essence of
All Vedic knowledge.
Of all Vedic knowledge.
The root of all religious principles and the memory
of all religious principles. Yeah, Mulam.
And the memory of great authorities.
And the memory of great authorities. So this is connected with this. Memory means meditation. Materialistic people who are devoid of transcendental knowledge, their mind, their thoughts, their meditation, isn't it? People who are in business, they constantly meditate on how to protect or how to increase or expand, isn't it, their business? And there's no limit. Prabhupada explains how even if somebody becomes a millionaire, his next thought is how to become a billionaire. And those are billionaires are competing with other billionaires, you know. Who's the largest billionaire?
Now it is.
It's changing.
Gautam Adani.
Huh?
Gautam Adani.
Or from India. What's his worth? Anyways, I mean, people are like, we use the expression in English, filthy rich. Filthy rich. It's like, this has been one of the ongoing major problems in modern day economics, is that the rich are becoming more and more rich. 132
billion.
132 billion. He's number one.
He's number two. First is
number two. Anyways, I cannot imagine. So, yes.
Oh, first is Elon Musk.
That's okay. So it means that we have to utilize our God-given intelligence. This is, of course, one of the basic principles explained also in the Bhagavad Gita. Knowing the constitution, how this body is constituted, knowing the workings of the senses, the workings of the mind, the workings of the intelligence and the soul. You know, it's like basic biology in one sense, basic biology and basic psychology. How this body is functioning and how to utilize the higher faculties, the intelligence to control, how to utilize the higher self to control the lower self. Very basic and important instruction given in the Bhagavad Gita. So the word taktva is used, of course, here also, giving up. And smaret, yeah. Okay, let's continue to and go to the next verse, text 28. Jnana-nisto virakto va.
Jnana-nisto virakto va.
Madbhakto va napekshakaha.
Madbhakto va napekshakaha.
Salingan asramam tyaktva.
Salingan ashramam tyaktva.
Chared avidhi gochara.
Chared avidhi gochara.
Translation and purport. A learned transcendentalist dedicated to the cultivation of knowledge and thus detached from external objects, or my devotee, who is detached even from desire for liberation, both neglect those duties based on external rituals or paraphernalia. Thus, their conduct is beyond the range of rules and regulations. That's an interesting verse in the context of Varnashrama. Because Varnashrama is all about rules and regulations. So here Krishna is telling, my bhakta doesn't bother about rules and regulations. Purport. Yes, this verse describes one who is beyond Varnashrama. This verse describes the Paramahamsa stage of life in which there is no further need for rituals, external paraphernalia, or rules and regulations. A completely realized jnana yogi pursuing liberation, or beyond that, a perfect devotee of the Lord who does not desire even liberation, has no further desire for material engagement. When one completely purifies the mind, there is no possibility of sinful behavior. Rules and regulations are meant for guiding those who have a tendency to act in ignorance or for personal gratification. The one who is perfect in spiritual consciousness can move freely, as described here by the Lord. One who tends to drive a car recklessly or who is unfamiliar with the local road conditions certainly needs the discipline of elaborate road signs and police enforcement of traffic laws. A perfectly safe driver, however, is thoroughly familiar with the local road conditions. He has no real need for the enforcement officials or the speed limits and caution signs meant for those unfamiliar with the road. A pure devotee of the Lord desires nothing except the service of the Lord. He automatically fulfills the purport of all negative and positive injunctions, which is to always remember Krishna and never forget him. One should not, however, artificially initiate the exalted position of a Paramahamsa devotee, for such imitation will quickly ruin one's spiritual career. In the previous verses, the Lord has elaborately described various rituals, paraphernalia, and disciplines for the various spiritual orders of life. The sannyasi, for example, carries a tridanda and a water pot and eats and lives in a particular way. A Paramahamsa devotee, having completely given up all attachment and interest in the material world, is no longer attracted by such external features of renunciation. Yes. When one accepts sannyas, the tradition is that one receives or takes a danda, tridandi sannyasi. And it is generally recommended that one carry the danda in the early years of one becoming a sannyasi. I think there was an injunction of maybe 10 years or something. Yeah, I forget where that somewhere it's mentioned that for a certain period of time. And then one has a choice to either continue or to leave it. And we can, of course, what comes to mind in terms of leaving the danda is that pastime of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Actually, it's the pastime of Nityananda Prabhu, not Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya happened to be part of that pastime because it was enacted by Lord Nityananda. So that pastime is when Lord Chaitanya soon after accepting sannyas and spending a few days in Shantipur, where, because it was like a major, very emotional kind of like, it was considered practically a tragedy, major event, major shock for all the residents of Navadvip who knew Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who was a young man married to a very young wife who was only 16 years of age. And therefore, no one expected, very often when people take sannyas, well, yeah, it happens sometimes, or when people leave home to become devotees, sometimes it happens in a rather maybe unexpected and shocking manner. In any event, all the devotees, so many devotees that come to Shantipur to have darshan of Lord Chaitanya, and that was a whole very emotional affair because they were having for the first time, people look different when they're shaved up. To the point that sometimes people cannot recognize them. Who is he? Is he the same person? So Lord Chaitanya, who was very, very beautiful, the bodily features of Lord Chaitanya are described, being very, very tall, very long arms, and just very beautiful features. So he looked also very beautiful as a sannyasi. So anyways, the devotees from Navadvip and different villages around Navadvip spent quite a few days in Shantipur, and everything was adjusted. Adjusted means that everyone, they had no choice, they had to accept that Lord Chaitanya had entered the sannyas order of life. And one of the main discussions and decisions that had to be taken is because the devotees in Navadvip, naturally, especially Mother Sachi, they were all so extremely, close, very, very attached. Because Lord Chaitanya, as Nimai, before taking sannyas, he was known as Nimai Pandit, had performed so many pastimes in Navadvip. He had, even before beginning the Sankirtan movement, which he did, he was known to so many. He was a young teacher at a very young age, started his own school. So many people knew him, and he had so many friends. So everyone was very attached to Lord Chaitanya, naturally, and so it was like a major emotional event. Him leaving his young wife and his elderly mother. They had his father already passed away quite some years back. Anyways, when he took sannyas, it was decided that he would stay in Jagannath Puri because Mother Sachi actually made that request that please, Vrindavan is very far. All the devotees sometimes go to Vrindavan. They more easily and more often go to Jagannath Puri, right? You're just coming from Jagannath Puri. So, and you must have met, Jagannath Puri is like the closest place of pilgrimage for Vaishnavas, for Gaudiya Vaishnava, especially for Gaudiya Vaishnava, because Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, for us in modern day times, because Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu spent so many years in Jagannath Puri, how many years? 18 years. Non-stop, right? From the age of 30 to 48, he didn't go out of Jagannath Puri. And of course, even before Lord Chaitanya went to Jagannath Puri was known, I mean, as the place of Lord Jagannath, and Vaishnavas would go there on pilgrimage regularly. So after that was decided, a few devotees, Nityananda, Prabhu, Mukunda, and a few others, they left for Lord Chaitanya to accompany him for what is described as his first visit to Jagannath Puri. I don't know if it's actually his first visit. That's part of the research you have to do. But it's described as the first visit because when he arrived there, it was like Lord Chaitanya was overwhelmed and fainted that whole Leela was there. So on the way to Jagannath Puri, Lord Chaitanya was actually carrying his danda. We see pictures of Lord Chaitanya after receiving initiation in Katwa. Katwa is very, very close from here. He carries his danda. But at some point, actually, Lord Nityananda, who is described as Avadut means you never know what to expect from such a person. They had to cross different rivers, and there's one river in Orissa, I forget exactly which place. I think it's in the Balasore district.
That is actually disputed where exactly is sannyas.
Oh, is it?
Because in Chaitanya Bhagavat it is little different. In Chaitamrita it is little different. So maybe the river changed course or something.
Yeah, well, of course that happens. The Ganga especially, and other rivers. But there's a river near Jaleswar.
Yeah.
Jaleswar is in the district of Balasore. Our Gorgopal is from that place. And I went bathing there actually because the village is very close. People traditionally would go bathing in the river actually. It's a big river. Anyways, whichever river it was, when Lord Chaitanya went to take his bath, Nityananda Prabhu broke his danda. And he broke his danda and he threw it in the river. And then when Lord Chaitanya came back, after dressing and whatnot, where's my danda? And what was Nityananda Prabhu's reply?
I have not read the.
Okay, I see. Yeah, something like I don't know. It just disappeared. So transcendental lies, whatever. But and Lord Chaitanya became so furious. He was very upset. How he must have known.
Oh no! In Bhagavad it is mentioned the danda could not withstand the weight of both Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu. So
Well, I mean that's a what is it, theological whatever symbolic kind of explanation of how the danda broke. The weight of both Nityananda Prabhu and Lord Chaitanya was such that the danda could not sustain their weight. That's a symbolic kind of explanation of why or how the danda broke. But actually, it was the, what do you call it, the mischievousness. It was Lord Nityananda who, Lord Nityananda, because he knew very well the identity of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the Supreme Personality of Godhead just doesn't need a danda, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead doesn't need, because becoming a sannyasi, taking danda, means actually accepting austerities. Nityananda Prabhu and other devotees also did not at all like the idea. Like when Lord Chaitanya was in Puri, the devotees were, there's a whole pastime about trying to make some like nice sleeping arrangement for him, you know. And Lord Chaitanya was refusing again and again and just telling them, why do you want to make all these elaborate arrangements for my sleeping? You know, you want me to again to become like a sense enjoyer? Because, you know, people spend a lot of money on their bed, usually. And it's like, I mean, I won't mention any names, but people usually have like really an oversized bed. And very costly. People spend a lot of money for furniture. That's why people who sometimes would visit Prabhupada or devotees, they would be amazed to see that, you know, where's the furniture? Where do we sit? Of course, devotees would generally have some chair for people who are not accustomed, because in the Western countries, as you may know, from the Western world, most people, they're just not accustomed to sitting on the floor. You know, we see people in all kinds of unusual positions, like cross-legged. It's just not natural for people. And it's like, it's real. People who come for the first time to Sunday feast find it very, very tough.
I just remembered that document that even Guru Govinda Maharaj